The Texas justice system is messy, so let's break it down. You're listening to So You Got Arrested, the podcast that tells you what really happens after an arrest. Hosted by BRIC criminal defense attorneys, we talk to the people who've lived it, worked in it, and been shaped by it. Whether you're facing charges or just want to understand your rights, your options, and the smart moves that could change everything, we've got your back.
Welcome to Say You Got Arrested. This is a BRIC criminal defense podcast. I'm your host, Steve Barrera. We have Jacob Lindberg co-hosting.
Hello.
And we are with Meli Carrión Powers. She was with us last week. And so, as you know, sometimes happens during these interviews, we get really interested in the subject matter. And so we've decided to carry this over to this next episode. So thank you for staying with us.
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me.
We were talking about, the uniqueness of family violence cases. And this is a matter that's near and dear to you because you're currently the chief of the Family Violence Division at the Bexar County DA's office.
Yes.
So what is a chief? What does a chief do? How does that work?
Sure. So there are, some people will say 14, some people will say 13 divisions at the DA's office. Family violence is actually the largest now. So when Joe, and I had referenced this before, but when DA Gonzalez came in 2019, and we really spent some time talking about staffing the division, he increased it significantly to where we went from having 15 prosecutors or something like that to 33.
Oh, wow.
It was huge. It was huge to where it was definitely significant. So I'm responsible for overseeing all of the progress of the division and the, any kind of helping and assisting and guiding the teams. We have felony teams, we have misdemeanor teams, we have intake attorneys, we have trial attorneys.
So as chief, you're responsible for family violence from misdemeanor all the way through.
Yes.
And there are, some of these cases that you're responsible for are also at the highest level.
Yes.
There are family violence, murder cases, things like that.
So it's the way I like to explain it is on from the family violence perspective, we have misdemeanors all the way up to felony, to murder, right? Murder, capital murder. Mm-hmm. Some of those are family violence cases. Yes. And then we also handle all child abuse. And so generally speaking, all child abuse is typically going to be felony level. Right. So that's child physical abuse, child sexual abuse. Those are handled by our felony team. We also do all sex crimes. So if it's an adult survivor, whether it's a child, whether it's an adult, any sex crime is going to come to our division.
Family violence as well.
Mm-hmm. And then we have a small human trafficking team. So our human trafficking team handles human sex trafficking.
Wow.
So it's
these
pretty
are
big.
the worst of the worst cases.
Yeah. In my opinion, I think so. Yeah, they're all violent crime. They all have victims or survivors. They all the ranges of punishment is going to vary just depending on the severity of the charge. But every case has a person on the other side of it.
So when you decided, hey, I want to go ahead and serve in this role as chief of family violence, that's a huge undertaking, a huge responsibility with a lot of cases. You had said that you had talked to Joe Gonzalez about, hey, I'd like to see these changes made, bringing in more prosecutors. Were there any other changes that you sought to have made? Or?
So the main change that he made right before we came in was increasing the size of the number of lawyers. So the number of attorneys, and that was significant. Once we came in, and I had already been in the division before, but I was a line prosecutor and I was a trial prosecutor. So I tried a bunch of cases in capital murder, but I had not managed before. And I think that's important because a lot of times you have to have the trial lawyer experience to know what you're doing, but you're also a manager, a teacher, a trainer, a supervisor.
You're a mentor.
You're all, there's a lot of hats. And so whenever I came into this role in 2019, I'd say relatively soon, in the first few months, I see that we have inherited a backlog of felony family violence cases. And I say that because backlog, you hear backlog all the time. But when we came in 2019, there were well over 3,000 unfiled felony family violence cases. Some of those cases I had the list, I had to dig them up, I had to find them, I had to work with I had some prosecutors help reach out to law enforcement. Some of these cases were 5 years old and 10 years old and 15 years old.
So these are cases where you have victims who are just waiting for something to happen.
Yes. And so we had to prioritize those, really, really, buckle down and review them as efficiently as we could. That backlog took, by the end of the year, so 9 months, 10 months, we had eliminated it. So we identified it, we came up with a plan, we eliminated that backlog so that we didn't have those cases, those old cases lingering anymore. And then COVID came, right? So when COVID comes, that kind of changes things
That
again.
changed everything.
That changes things again.
So just, for our watchers and listeners, when COVID hit, the courts shut down. I mean, they shut down for quite a while. And then when we resumed court, it was all on Zoom, but there were no trials.
And no grand juries, right?
There were grand
Okay.
juries.
And so a grand jury is just the group of people who actually indict a felony case, which allows a felony case to be brought into court.
There was definitely interruptions to it. I mean,
Okay.
we were even, when COVID came, the office wasn't even equipped to send people to work from home. We were getting laptops and, just being able to work remotely technologically was not something we were prepared to do, which kind of, it's all technology. It all comes to funding and resources. But so that took some time. But the courts were running on Zoom once they did continue. So there was some movement there, but you couldn't really have a trial.
And if you can't have a trial, trial is kind of the Fisher cut bait for criminal cases.
Yeah.
And so if you remove that deadline, then cases can back up because now there's no incentive on either side. If somebody wants to, they can just say, well, we're not going to do anything on this.
There's no incentive to move anything.
Yes.
So you did see, some delay in cases during the COVID time. I can't remember exactly how long, but I felt like it shut down and then opened back up and then shut down again, if I'm correct.
And Bexar County was shut down, because we practice in jurisdictions
Right.
all around. Bexar County was one of the longest before they actually, went back to normal court operations.
Yep.
And then we come back from COVID, and then there's something, I talk about this too a lot. There's something called the Great Resignation, where after people had experienced what it was like to be able to work from home and have that flexibility, whether it was, picking up kids or doctor's appointments or whatever, you were able to work from home. You had much more flexibility. Some people found themselves to be more productive. Then the workforce starts to change, and we start to see it, and we start to see it in our office. We start to see it nationwide with prosecutors across the country, where now there's a shortage of prosecutors in not just in Texas, not just in Bexar County, but nationwide. The people applying to come in to be prosecutors, that number decreased. It was significant. So then that's going to take us down this road to where we have staffing shortages.
Sure. We saw it on our end where after COVID, we never used to get this question from people applying to work is, will I be allowed to work from home?
Yeah.
That would have never come up pre-COVID.
all the time.
It would have been like, what? But then after COVID, that's a common thing.
very
People
common.
just want to work from home.
Yeah, it's very, very common. It's very, very common. And so when we start to see people leave for other corporate jobs, higher paying jobs, jobs that gave them more flexibility with the work from home options, then we start to struggle with, okay, we don't have enough people doing the work. We can't hire enough
because
people.
it can be difficult to have a trial attorney or a line prosecutor work from home. You're a courtroom lawyer.
Yeah.
Your job is to be in the court every
Right.
day.
Right.
So
And you have to meet with the victims and all of these things. It's a lot of work.
A lot of in-office time
in
work.
office,
Yeah.
absolutely.
for
You
sure.
need a lot of face time at the office, and it's by necessity.
Yeah. And so in terms of the improvements or the things that we did change, we eliminated that first backlog. And then another thing that we did, was it maybe around 2020? I can't remember exactly when it was, but the average time that it took for a victim's assistance person to call on let's say a misdemeanor family violence case, to call a victim from the time of arrest. So somebody would be arrested, then we call them a crime victim liaison, would reach out to a victim. The process was kind of archaic the way it was being done. And so what it meant was it took on average 3 or 4 months.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So this is before somebody from the DA's office is reaching out to a victim.
This is right. So there's an arrest. Somebody in the DA's office is reaching out to the victim to say, hey, there's been an arrest.
Yeah.
We have your case. Like, let's talk about that and tell you what's going on with it. And then it's still going to be reviewed and by a prosecutor, or it's still going to go to court. But so Joe, I remember very clearly, he may not like me telling this story, but so Joe said, that is not okay. And he was right. And he's like, fix it. And I remember thinking that I don't know that I can, but we did. We did. We changed the way, so a crime victim liaison wouldn't wait for a physical file. We pulled reports from the magistrate's office, the arrest reports, and we could get them the next day.
Is this what you mean by it was archaic? And
Yes.
that you had to wait for a
We
physical
had to
file.
wait for a physical file to open it, to call the person.
Right.
But then we just completely changed the process. And so now, absent, certain circumstances, they can make those calls in the same week. So if they pull the arrest reports over the weekend, so that's going to be Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night, then that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they can be making those calls.
And whereas previously it was 3 or 4 months.
It was months
before they heard.
Yeah,
from
and I
somebody.
had no idea, right?
Right.
Because I was a line prosecutor, and so until you get in it and you're really like figuring out, where the kind of the delays are. So that was a huge change.
And so let's talk about that. I mean, why would that be important? That somebody's reaching out to that victim as soon as possible?
Because, like we were talking about, the complications that come with family violence cases, whether it's, the dynamics, the family violence dynamics, there's many, many, many issues. One, when you hear from the office, as a victim, as a survivor, when you hear from the office and you know that because you reported a crime, somebody's now got it and somebody's working on it, that increases the likelihood that our victim survivor is going to have positive feelings about this experience and want to continue through the process, as opposed to having reported a crime and having heard from nobody. Then you have to, our victims and survivors and offenders, many of them are still kind of trying to figure out how to coexist and not hear anything from anybody in the criminal justice system, or not hear for months. Then you kind of lose. You become disenchanted. You kind of lose, like, well, why I reported this, or heaven forbid it's a child abuse case where a kid has outcried about abuse and nothing's happened. Nobody's called, and maybe something's happening, but nobody's called. Right. So that's all really important, to maintain that communication with victims, to let them know that we have your case, we're working on it. We'll give you that, some input, and we'll take your feedback and all the things that need to go with it. Refer them to resources. Some of our survivors need to go to have options to go to counseling or file protective orders. So there's a lot that goes in with that victim communication. And so I feel like we made strides on those misdemeanor cases. There's still work to be done on the felony cases. That becomes a little bit more complex, but that is something that we can do too. Mm-hmm.
And these cases that you're talking about, the Family Violence Division handling child sex cases and murders and felony family violence, we're talking strangulation or cases. Even at the misdemeanor level, these are very complicated. Tell me about, the kind of prosecutors or the mentality you have to be able to, because I was talking to somebody the other day about these big, heavy cases. I mean, they do weigh on you. They take a little bit of your soul. And, at times you can almost get sympathy fatigue because everyone's, you're getting the worst of the worst every day. So what kind of mentality do you have to be able to do this?
It takes a special kind of person. I do believe that. When people, because in the office, we try to rotate prosecutors from time to time so they learn different things, and it's really based on the needs of the office. But anytime a prosecutor comes into the division, I try to have a conversation about look, family violence and child abuse cases are not for everybody. Mm-hmm. What I usually will ask is just give it a fair shake, like have an open mind, see the work that you do and the impact that it's going to have. And then I would say more often than not, those prosecutors once they kind of get a taste of it, of how the impact that they're having with victims and with children, then when it comes time for moves, I start to get the text messages, please don't move me. Like family violence forever. Like,
Right.
I've had a couple that were getting burnt out, and I could see it. And so I sat down with one gentleman one time, and he would never have wanted to leave the division, wanted to do what, the work that we're doing. And I had to have that conversation when I said, look, it looks like you need a break, or to do something different, I should say, because I could see the burnout. Like, he was unwell, he was getting sick.
And we could do an entire episode just on attorney prosecutor burnout.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
It's a thing. And he was open to it. And I said, let's just have you go do something else for 6 months. And if you want to come back, we'll bring you back and it'll all be okay. But I have to kind of keep a lookout for that too, to make sure that they're okay.
And so we're up against our break, but when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Meli Carrión Powers.
The attorneys at Brick Criminal Defense have helped over 5,000 clients move on with their lives. When an arrest or accusation turns your life upside down, we have the knowledge, experience, and integrity to get your life back on track. Traditional legal ethics, modern legal tactics, the best defense possible to get you through the criminal justice system. Search Brick Criminal Defense to see our reviews and find out why so many of our clients have trusted us to fight for them. Brick Criminal Defense, helping our clients move on with their lives.
Okay, so we're back. Now, Meli, I know, looking at I keep up with the news here in San Antonio and Bexar County, especially when it comes to things involving the DA's office or crime. I know that there were some articles talking about the backlog on family violence cases here in Bexar County. Can you kind of tell us about that?
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, when we were talking about this nationwide shortage of prosecutors, Bexar County, at one point in time, we were carrying about an 8% vacancy, which was nothing compared to some of our counterparts that like Hidalgo and Nueces County were at 27, 24% vacancy. Wow. So it was affecting it wasn't just here, it was everywhere that we have the shortage of prosecutors. So as a result, when we don't have enough people to do the work, what ended up happening was our misdemeanor cases that cases that come in need to be reviewed to make that determination of can we move forward or can we not. But we don't have enough people to do the work's going to add up a little bit. And so that's what happened over about a year or so, where I'm supposed to have however many, 8 prosecutors, and I have 1. So we were losing prosecutors to other counties that were paying more. We were losing prosecutors to defense firms.
Yeah, we hired Jacob in our county DA's office. He was a prosecutor.
You took Jacob and offered him more money. And so what ended up happening, obviously, is you don't have enough people to do the work. The work will add up. That can have an effect on morale because now you have people carrying the work of their colleagues who have left.
Sure.
And so what ended up happening was we were able to really hire a good number of prosecutors in October, November. Our backlog peaked in October to about 2,800 cases, and we hire a bunch of prosecutors, put them in different places, build up our intake team, and now, as of Monday, that number of outstanding cases went from 2,800 to 1,800, which is about a 37% decrease.
And I think at some point I had read, and I may be wrong on this, that prosecutors got a raise or there was some additional funds allocated. Is that?
So no, in fact, we've been turned down repeatedly when the office, when asking for raises. So Senate Bill 22 from the legislature gives a bunch of money to the rural counties for law enforcement. So that's law enforcement officers, including prosecutors. And what it did was it gave them money so they could compete against the larger counties. But what ended up happening was now they're paying more. So we were losing prosecutors just to go up the street to
So maybe it wasn't your prosecutors who were getting
right. It
raised.
wasn't ours.
Okay.
And so as a result, now we're not competitive when it comes to salaries. Repeatedly, we've put together a near budget neutral ask. We came up with different kind of think outside the box to address this issue. And one of the things that we were able to do was create this program. It's called a high risk intake program. So this is not family violence that I'm talking about now, but just general felonies. We were able to take money from those unfilled positions and pay prosecutors to work on these cases overtime. So they could work, it was an incentive for our prosecutors to do even more work outside.
So a
of
lot of times
hours.
people don't understand that, like DA's offices, you don't have an unlimited budget.
No,
You're,
no.
you're working within
we have.
what budget you are given.
It's the budget that we're given, and then and really, you don't even get to use the money the way you want to. You have to ask permission from our county government. You have to ask permission to get it, to use it in different ways. So we had to ask for that high risk intake. We couldn't just take the money from the vacancies and say, here you go. We couldn't do that. We had to go get permission to do that, even though it was like using our own money.
Right. So, a lot of times these decisions on, hey, we need more prosecutors, you can't just run out and say, I'm going to hire a bunch of prosecutors. There's a very specific process that has to play out that's outside of the DA's office control.
Correct. And I mean, obviously I'm biased and I work for the DA's office. I think we should have all the resources in the world, but there are however many other county government offices that I'm sure all think that, they need more money too. So I imagine it's not an easy job, but I do think we need to make sure we're putting public safety first.
So, and that kind of brings us to, what's going on in your life right now. You're running for the position of Bexar County District Attorney. So what made you decide like, hey, I want to go ahead and run for this position?
I did not expect to run. Joe announced that he was not going to be running. Throughout the summer, there was, talk of multiple different people entering the race.
Sure.
Ultimately, come October, after a lot of conversations with my husband, we decided, you know what, this is something that I need to do. I'm confident that I understand the office and the complexities and the problems that we have. I'm confident that I, with a team, can come up with solutions. And it wasn't something we expected to do, but I think we both agreed, even though it's a sacrifice for him too, we both agreed that this was something that I'm supposed to do.
So how long in total have you been a prosecutor?
Since 2001.
Okay. So we're talking about 25 years.
Yes,
Okay.
ish.
Yeah,
Yeah,
time
depending
flies.
on the month. Yeah.
Right. And so you've worked under different elected DAs, you've worked under different divisions, different departments. I'm sure in that time you've seen the way certain things were done, and maybe you've had ideas of, hey, if I was in charge, I might do it a little bit differently.
Yes.
What things would you do differently from, not just maybe from working for Joe Gonzalez, but you also worked, under Susan Reed, you worked under Nico LaHood. What kind of things would you be doing differently?
What I will say about having worked for 3 elected DAs is that I think all of them, while everybody might have different ideologies and priorities, I've never seen any of them come in. Everybody wants to come in to do good.
Right.
Everybody wants to come in and make things better.
They want to do the right thing.
We might have right. And for even Republican, Democrat, and I hate that all of it's party related, but all of them, I have respect for each of them, even though each of those prior elected DAs are very different people. Now, for me, what makes me a little bit different than the prior elected district attorneys is that I'm a lifelong prosecutor. So Joe had some prosecutorial experience in Harris County before he came in. He was a prosecutor for about 8 years. Then he was a defense attorney for a really, really long time. And Nico was never a prosecutor. He had to come in and kind of figure that out after having been a defense attorney. Judge Reed was a prosecutor for some years, but also a judge, right? Judge Reed. And so I'm the only one that I know of in recent history that would be a career prosecutor, somebody that grew up, understood, has worked through different departments, different issues, different problems. And I think that puts me in a unique position compared to most of my other opponents. So who I have respect for as well. One of the major things that I see that we need to do is, I guess the easiest way to describe it is like a reallocation of personnel. We need to move people a little bit, reallocate our resources so that our workloads and our caseloads are more balanced.
What do you mean by that?
So you depending on what division you're in, a balanced workload is not necessarily the same amount of cases. Right, 100 cases in one unit is not the same as 100 cases in another unit.
Definitely.
And so
100 child sex cases is not the same as 100 DWIs.
No, not at all. And so those things need to be considered, and reallocating people into our intake roles so that we can get through some of these backlogs. And it may mean moving people, like it's a fluid thing, because when COVID happens and the courts back up, then we need more people in courts. When we don't have enough staffing and intake backs up, well, then we need more people in intake. So it's you have to be able to kind of move with, it's a living, the office is a living organism in its own way.
And the needs are constantly
changing.
Yep.
And we have to be able to change with it too. So I think that is something that we need to look at. The other thing I would like to do is to work with law enforcement on how we receive cases, how law enforcement files cases with our office, so that we're doing it in a more efficient manner, and that we're doing it in a way that promotes public safety. We receive cases in a number of ways. You can have somebody be arrested, a crime is reported, and an officer makes a scene and an arrest is made, and then the case comes to us that way. Or you may have a offense that's reported and it's investigated, but no arrest is made, and the case comes over as an at-large case. There's not a lot of counties that do it that way.
At-large just means the defendant's never been arrested.
Correct.
He's still at large.
Correct. And won't be arrested unless and until a case is filed.
Until the case is filed.
Which can take some time. But I think if we could come together with our law enforcement partners, and obviously we want to work together so that everybody's on the same page, but I think we could make some changes there that will improve our efficiency in how we handle cases, their efficiency in how they file cases, and then eliminate some delays that we have now. So that's another key area. Our victim communication, the changes that we made in family violence were really big. Really big, to be able to go from, months out of
A victim not hearing anything.
Victim not hearing to, a matter of a week. That's huge. And I think we can do it office-wide. So we've done it in family violence. It will take, all of it takes sitting down and really trying to iron out the problem, and we got to put a solution into place. How do we make sure it works, test it out, and see how it works, and use data to make sure that we're doing the right thing. So I think victim communication there, we still have some improvements to make, and I'd like to see some of those things that we've done in family violence be mirrored across the office. I could go on and on. Our jail. So our jail bond, violent crime, all of these things come together. Some of the issues that we're battling and we heard the county judge debate talk about, like, the overcrowding in the jail. And this question has come up again, and I think a lot of times what we need to do is figure out who's in jail that shouldn't be in jail.
Right.
And how that's a complex thing to do. That takes,
well, and you're never going to get the answer right. No matter what decision is made, somebody's going to be upset at that.
There's that. But I think we can identify those nonviolent crimes, or the people that are in jail for the wrong reason. The jail diversion center that they're talking about now, I think the county judge candidates were talking about it as well, that the city and the county are working together to have this diversion center that diverts people from the jail with mental health, who are waiting for mental health treatment, away from the jail, which is huge to me. And I'm like, why?
Well, because I know for a while there was a big debate about, you'd have homeless people that were getting charged with trespassing, and just they don't have any place to go.
Right. So there's a social component there. It's a social problem, right? We want to make sure that we're protecting our businesses. We want to make sure we're protecting property owners, but we also have a social problem there that we need to consider too. How do we handle that situation humanely, where we're making it better and not worse?
Well, and then you don't want somebody occupying a cell, and now all of a sudden jail's overcrowded, and you have somebody who's committed a violent offense, and it's like, well, we just don't have room, for these people because we're housing.
Talked about the low-level offenses and some programs available for those kinds of things. You going to try and pursue those programs as well? Other programs, things like that?
I am open to any program that's going to help address these root causes, to keep people on the right track, so that they're thriving in our community and not suffering and not committing additional offenses. Some of that, I think, our mental health area we can grow in. I think our mental health unit in the office we can probably expand in. substance abuse. There's a lot of specialty courts out there right now that are doing really good work. We should continue, but we should also pay attention and see where there are gaps that we need to be thinking about filling.
Yeah.
Well, because, it used to be the case that I would get these cases where a family member would call the police because their loved one was having a mental health episode.
Right.
Now, prior to the mental health courts and
Right.
things like that,
Right.
I mean, I would tell the client that, look, the criminal justice system, as it was back then, it was the scenario where if all you have is the hammer, everything's a nail.
Right.
Yep.
Because the criminal justice system wasn't outfitted to do
Right.
those things. It wasn't outfitted to address those problems. So it's good to see that now we're actually looking at some of
Right.
these things and
Right.
saying, hey, somebody with a mental health crisis, that's not necessarily something that belongs, in the criminal justice system as we think of it,
Right.
with punishment.
And it's everywhere. I review pretrial diversion applications on our family violence cases, and mental health issues are to me, would just unofficially, when I'm looking and counting, it's very prevalent, the mental health issues that we see. So expanding diversion there where we can, or identifying those cases earlier, or making the pretrial diversion application process a little bit faster. Like
Sure.
there's ways I think we can do that.
Yeah, because when I would get these cases, it would be like a concerned mother.
Right.
And of course, she doesn't want her son prosecuted because he's schizophrenic or because he's bipolar,
needs
but
help.
he's like, he's breaking stuff in the house. He gets charged with criminal mischief or whatever it is. She doesn't want it prosecuted. She just wants help.
And wants it to stop and wants help.
That's exactly right. So if people want to find out more information about you, how do they do that?
So we have a website. Our website is www.meli4da.com.
And it's for FOR? spelled out?
FOR.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, for, not the for.
Okay. Meli4da.com.
And there's information on there. People have reached out and sent messages via the email, or also on social media, Instagram or Facebook.
And is the email address on the website?
Yes, and it's info@meli4da.com is the email. But if anybody reaches out, I'm happy to respond. I enjoy the conversations. We've been block walking a lot and knocking on doors, and those are the best conversations.
Sure.
People
People have questions.
do.
People, want to know how it works.
And then you
or-
share information, and they're like, aha.
Well, a lot of
yes.
people don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. It's been great.
Yeah.
We've
And that-
enjoyed it.
And that's one of the reasons that we do the podcast.
Right.
And so we are out of time. This went by very fast. I want to thank you for appearing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This is So You Got Arrested with Brick Criminal Defense. If you get charged with a crime and your life is in pieces, we can help you put that back together. 210-874-5080. Jacob Lindbergh, Steve Barrera, and our guest, Meli Carrión Powers,
Thank you,
running
Meli.
for Bexar County District Attorney.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to So You Got Arrested. If you found this podcast helpful, share it with someone who needs to hear it. For more legal insights and real talk from the front lines of the Texas justice system, follow us and subscribe. And remember, Brick Criminal Defense has your back. For more information, visit us at brckdefense.com.